Well, I think we will get started because our panelists are here. And again, to all of you watching the recording, thank you so much for being here. And of course, thank you to our panelists for this first session of Faithful Voices in a Critical Hour. We will be meeting the first Monday of every month up through the November midterms. So please, if you enjoyed this meeting, please show your friends. Let them know that there's a lot that can be gained from these hour-long sessions we have the first Monday of every month. This one is called Faithful Voices in a Critical Hour, a legacy worth building on, Faith 250. We'll be explaining Faith 250 in just a moment, but wanted to take a little bit of time for those of you who may be unfamiliar with WIVEC and then our parent organization, Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. WIVEC is the Wisconsin Interfaith Voter Engagement Campaign, and we work to engage the interfaith community in the democratic process. This nonpartisan work deepens understanding and strengthens ties among different faith communities. You can see that just here in this panel already. Increase engagement in the electoral process and result in a greater awareness of the positive role faith communities can play in the public square. We're certainly going to see that today. As we all know, widespread voter engagement is needed to ensure that elected leaders will pay attention to the needs of all their constituents, especially those who are least often listened to and who have the most at stake. Within WIVEC, we have 3 areas of engagement. We call them voter engagement, voter education, and voter protection. With voter engagement, we work with voters and volunteers to help engage our most vulnerable populations. These are low propensity, or as we call them, high opportunity voters, student voters, voters who are living in perhaps marginalized communities, voters who experience disabilities, voters who move often. These are the voters who are the most at stake and who are often times left out of the process. We help congregations reach out to their own vulnerable populations, those who perhaps are in long-term care, those who are homebound, because again, we are an interfaith organization and we work through congregations and interfaith organizations as well as secular organizations. And webinars like this would qualify, or meetings like this are about voter education. Like I said, we're going to have one meeting every month to begin with before the election in November. We have many different speaking engagements. We put out a newsletter that comes out no later than every Tuesday. I am the editor and deadlines are very important to me. So we get them out before, oftentimes by Tuesday afternoon. These are newsletters that not only promote WIVEC, but promote our partners, both statewide and national webinars as well, that we think are most important to Wisconsin voters. We also work with colleges, high schools, middle schools, university faith communities. I've always said I want to start going to camps, maybe on rainy days, giving those campers something different to do on a rainy day. We know that voter engagement isn't about age only. It's not about the voters, but it's about instilling these virtues in students and younger future voters, of course. And then we also work within voter protection. With voter protection, we are a grassroots advocacy organization. We work to strengthen our democracy through fair maps, through challenging the overreach of different branches of government. We advocate for ballot boxes, absentee voting, and making it easiest for every voter possible to cast their vote. And of course, we will be continuing our poll chaplain program this fall. We'll start recruiting in around July and August, recruiting, organizing, and training poll chaplains of all denominations to come out on election day and ensure that voters feel safe and secure with a proactive pastoral presence. So again, this is the Wisconsin Interfaith Voter Engagement Campaign. Thank you to all of the volunteers out there who provide so many hours and commitment and support to WIVEC. We could not do this, just the 3 of us. So thank you so much to everyone out there helping us make elections free and fair in Wisconsin. With that, I will pass off to Jill Olson, from the Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, so she can talk a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Rhonda. So hello, everyone. Like Rhonda said, I'm Jill Olson. I'm the communications coordinator for Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. I want to add to Rhonda's warm welcome and to say how grateful we are that you're all here today. I'll be working closely with Rhonda this election season at WIVEC, so you'll definitely see my name and face connected with that work. So we wanted to give you a chance to get to see me and have a little bit of my voice heard. Rhonda asked me to share a little bit today about Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice and its work. We're a statewide interfaith nonprofit working to connect, empower, and advocate for justice issues across faith communities and traditions. At our core, we believe that when faith communities come together, real change can happen. And that's what drives our work towards the common good and a life of dignity for everyone. Wisconsin Faith Voices is here to support that work, and we would love for anyone who's interested to be part of it. So I'll drop our website link in the chat for anyone who wants to learn more. And I'll send it back to Rhonda to share about the Faith 250 program.
Fabulous. Thanks, Jill. Wow, we are ahead of schedule, which is fantastic. So make sure you let everyone know if you come to a WIVEC webinar, we are ahead of schedule. So what we wanted to do today is talk about Faith 250, this beautiful nationwide program bringing interfaith communities together to study about some of our sacred texts here in the United States. I learned about Faith 250 back in the fall, and I was super excited to bring it to WIVEC, and then WIVEC was able to bring it to two different areas, both Milwaukee, where I'm from, and Appleton. And in Appleton, not only were we able to bring together people in Appleton, we were also able to bring together people across the state who could only come who could come only online. So super excited to share with the larger community what Faith 250 was all about, and hopefully bring some of you into the fold of Faith 250. So what is exactly Faith 250? Faith 250 is a program that invites faith leaders and communities across the country to form clusters of congregations to act as sacred spaces for listening to one another, clarifying our shared civic values, and celebrating our hope for America. We are, of course, on the eve of our nation's 250th birthday, and Faith 250 is looking to bring us together proactively and celebrate the diversity of our country through our faith traditions, but also through our cultural traditions, our ethnic groups, and however you want to define yourself. Faith 250, our work centers on four of what we would consider America's sacred texts. We are not going to list them in order of when they were written, but listing them in order of how we're going to present them in our next phase. So first we have Emma Lazarus's The New Colossus, and also the beautiful song America the Beautiful. And then next we have Frederick Douglass's What to the Slave is the 4th of July. And finally, even though it's probably our nation's first document, the Declaration of Independence. What we have done is completed our first cohort, and that was what we called our clergy and lay leader cohort. And we have 3 of those participants here today on our panel. The clergy relationship building cohort, we came together both in person and online to study these 4 texts one at a time, to get to know each other, to get to trust each other, and to share in our reflections, both within our faith traditions and also the traditions that we walk in, the shoes that we walk in every day. We are now gearing up for the second part of this cohort, which is multi-congregation fellowship. We come together with a meal or snacks and study these 4 texts, not just as clergy leaders or lay leaders, but as fellow congregants. So we invite all of you to join us, ask your fellow congregants, your friends and family members and other networks to come to these different cohorts now that are in the congregational gatherings. We will gather in person in Milwaukee. We will gather in person in Appleton, and we will also have online gatherings for those people who are a little further afield and can't make it to one of these two one of these two gatherings. If we have interest in expanding this to different areas of the state, we'll make it happen for you. So if you're in Eau Claire, if you're in Wausau, if you're in Beloit, and this is something you want to bring to your community, come to Jill and me. We'll figure out a way to do it. And then finally, what I am most excited about is a celebration that they're calling a public civic ritual. And each community, both Appleton and Milwaukee, we will gather together to celebrate our nation's 250th birthday. We will come together and not just read text, but we will engage in how to work together to bring this election in November to every person. We are calling these gatherings Pray with Your Feet, Pray with Your Vote. We launched this in 2024 in Milwaukee, in Appleton, and in Kenosha, and in Madison. And we're going to combine this celebration with Pray with Your Feet, Pray with Your Vote to get everyone excited about how to engage within your community. So that is what Faith 250 is all about. It's about clergy cohorts leading to congregational gatherings, leading to a public celebration to honor our nation's 250th birthday. So thank you for starting today with this with this meeting. And again, thank you to all of you who are listening online and to those of you who are on the recording. Most of all, thank you to our panelists. We have three panelists here who might be in the first, some of the first squares. We have Nancy Jones, Chuck Cohen, and Rabbi Moishe Steigman, the mindful rabbi of Own Your Judaism. I'm going to give brief bios of. Okay, I think we're good. We're going to give you brief bios of each of them, and then we are going to have some questions that I will ask of our panelists. And if there is time at the end and there are questions that you'd like to ask of them yourselves, you can put them in the chat or you can just raise your hand. It's a small gathering. And at WIVEC, we like to say that we do not have webinars, we have meetings. So please feel free to engage like family and friends, because that's what you all are to us. Okay, so first, our bios in no particular order. Rabbi Moishe Steigman. Moishe Steigman, the mindful rabbi, seamlessly blends ancient Jewish wisdom with contemporary mindfulness practices. Through his teachings, writings, and workshops, he continues to influence and lead the conversation on mindful living within and beyond the Jewish community. He also speaks, hosts, live stream conversations, and offers Jewish life coaching and organizational consultation. Born and raised in Milwaukee, Rabbi Steigman is a proud father of two children, loves sports, is passionate about living gratefully, and enjoys almost all puzzles and games. And I'm thrilled to be with Rabbi Steigman again. Rabbi Steigman and I work together often in Milwaukee as well. On to Nancy Jones. Nancy, you are a new friend of mine, but I'm so grateful to know you. Nancy is a retired K through 12 educator. She taught in the Oshkosh and Appleton school districts in elementary and reading classrooms. Nancy is a former faith formation coordinator of her congregation, Prince of Peace Lutheran Church, ELCA. She has been involved in advocacy work throughout her life. She currently serves as the leader of her faith community's advocacy team, president of First 5 Fox Valley, an early childhood collective impact organization, action vice president of the League of Women Voters of Appleton Fox Cities, and vice president of the Wisconsin Anti-Violence Effort, which is called WAVE, the Educational Fund. She serves as the congregational representative to Esther, a faith-based community organizing group, a Wisdom affiliate. Nancy, that's a mouthful. Thank you. Shows how busy you can stay in retirement. If you ever are looking for help, you find a retired teacher and they'll answer the call. And finally, a Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice board member, Chuck Cohen. Charles Cohen is E. Gordon Fox Professor Emeritus of UW-Madison, where he was also the founding director of the Lubar Institute for the Abrahamic Religions. He currently serves as a board member of Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice and as a member of the Religious Practices Advisory Committee of the Wisconsin State Department of Corrections. So thank you for being here. And Chuck, thank you for all the support you give to me and to Jill and to Matt Kanzera at Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. We appreciate all the work that you do for the community. And again, thank you so much to our three panelists for being here, for sharing what they got out of Faith 250, and for joining Faith 250. I believe that all of you were able to attend at least 3 of the 4 meetings. It's always a great thing to say. We wish you can come to every meeting, but you can still get a lot out of meetings, even if you can't make it to every single one. So I'm going to get our panel kicked off here. And again, please don't hesitate to put a question in the chat. We will always have time for those at the end of our program before we do our calls to action. So here we go with our panelist program. I will be the moderator. First questions is this. Probably a basic question for anyone as when we join up with different programs. What brought you to join Faith 250 as either a clergy member or lay leader in your congregation or organization? So, Rabbi Steigman, we'll have you get started. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. The short and honest answer is Rhonda brought me to Faith 250. She invited me. It sounded wonderful, so I accepted on the spot. The slightly more thoughtful answer is I believe that there is so much wisdom in our faith communities and so many deep, deep values within our faith communities that can inspire us not only as individuals and also as a community and as a society, and in this case, as a country, how to live. I wish that we could live out some of the values that are so omnipresent and consistent within our faith communities in a more tangible, concrete way within our political system. The ability to do it with colleagues and with lay leaders, just people who are really committed to the joint exploration of what our values share and teach and influence. That was just an opportunity I would never say no to. And most importantly, I see so many of these values in our country's core foundational texts. If it's from political texts to inspirational poetry, our values are just present. All that being said, for as many opportunities that I see for living out these values, I also see a lot of ways in which we have fallen short, both historically in living out these values, and also in ways in which we continue to fall short in contemporary times. And rather than simply say that this is a failed experiment or a failed country, or that our religious voices have no presence or nothing to add, I would rather explore the intersection between our religious voices and values, what our foundational texts have tried to inspire, celebrate the successes, and also really hold ourselves collectively accountable for the times that we have and the times that we continue to fall short, with an eye of simply, but hopefully not minimizing, simply asking, how can we do better today and tomorrow? So that's why I was so excited and eager to join Faith 250.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Nancy, I'm going to ask you the same question and I'll repeat it. What brought you to join Faith 250 as for you as a lay leader at Prince of Peace, or as a lay leader within all of the different organizations you were a part of?
Yeah, my short answer would have to be Rhonda too, but a very different path. In my bio, it mentioned that I'm the Action Vice President for our local League of Women Voters, and the League of Women Voters is part of a broader coalition called the Wisconsin Voting Rights Coalition. And so I went to what Rhonda was calling a family meeting back in, I don't know, it was October or sometime in the fall, where all the members of the coalition were sharing what they were doing, what their plans were for the coming year, for voter engagement. And Rhonda mentioned Faith 250, and I lead the advocacy team in my congregation. And so that I perked up for that because I thought it sounded like a great program to offer to my own congregation, but also kind of another pathway for some of the more secular networks to connect with people who may or may not be low propensity voters, but we know that the voter turnout in midterms is nothing like in presidential years, and that's kind of the path we're really focused on with the League of Women Voters right now, is really engaging people. So I inquired about the program and did a little digging and found the other thing that got my attention in that meeting was that Rhonda mentioned she had an Appleton cohort, and that's where I live. I live in Appleton, and so I found out at another meeting that Rhonda hosted in Green Bay that Katie Olson from Esther, our which is an interfaith community organization, that she was her contact. There's her heart. And so I also, I heard as clergy cohort, so I had shared the information with the clergy leaders in my own congregation. The meeting time ended up being a conflict with the weekly staff meeting. But then I heard Katie on another meeting say that it was open to lay leaders. So I was like, yes, we want to do this. And there was support for exploring this as an option. And I'm an active community person, so anything that brings people together is usually appealing to me, especially when it's around shared values and something that you can get around and have a good conversation around is appealing. But the other thing is, for me, I think so often that individuals feel that their faith tradition is in one box and their civic life is in another box. And I really feel strongly that it's very healthy when people can connect those parts of themselves, and it helps you feel more integrated when you have these parts of your life connected, and you have time to discuss and think about how they're connected, or why you feel called into your community in certain ways, how that's informed by your faith, but also how your faith needs to see itself as part of the broader community. So those are some of the thoughts that I had.
Thanks so much, Nancy. Glad that our webinars and our online meetings really connect with people. We'll be having more family. I would say all of our meetings are family meetings. But yes, that was one that was specifically about just what we're doing for the future. So thanks so much. I'm glad it resonated. And finally, Chuck, our board member from Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice and Professor Emeritus, what brought you to Faith 250?
In a way, it's the story that Maurice and Nancy have said in reverse since I asked you. I'll explain that. I taught history. That's my professional life, American religious history. And I've also been deeply interested in both history and in interfaith connections for much of my life, and certainly my professional life. At Madison, I ran an institute for the study of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and my last book was a history of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So as I heard about this project, I mean, as we talked about it in board meetings, so I had advance notice of it, as it were. I said, this is a no-brainer for me. I just have to do this. Will I be able to? Since I'm not a clergy member, and whether I'm a congregational leader, I think not. So I went to Rhonda, who comes to most of our monthly meetings, and said, please, 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 can I join? Would it be okay? And happily for me, she said yes. So I look forward finally to having the kinds of conversations with people in a way replicating the student experience that I loved all my life and this gave me another reason to do it, and one that I think is very important in these times.
Okay, thanks so much, Chuck. I wish that when I asked my family to do things for me, they would say yes as readily as Nancy, Moish, and Chuck did, because typically the answer is no, and emphatic no, I might say too. So, yeah, so we're really lucky to be able to do our Appleton series online. We needed to get sort of special permission from Faith 250, the national organization, but we were able to bring in not just people in Appleton, but people across the state. And we plan to do that for our second phase of Faith 250. So again, to remind everyone, we read 4 different pieces of what we could call sacred text of the United States, the Declaration of Independence, and no, not the whole part of it, just a piece of it. What to the Slave is the 4th of July. Again, an excerpt, and some of us read the speech in its entirety. The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus, the poem that is where some of the lines are written on the Statue of Liberty, and finally America the Beautiful. So these were our 4 texts that were given to us by Faith 250. I think it was a great cross section of both of prose and poetry, not all of which we call the prose, of course, is all nonfiction. Really a great look at texts that I certainly had not thought of since high school, if not just my couple of years of college, first couple of years of college. So my next question is, how did you bring your faith tradition to these readings? I'm going to start with Nancy and asking again, you are a member of Prince of Peace, part of the Lutheran tradition. So how did you bring this faith tradition to the readings?
I think brought the same way I would approach any of my advocacy work. I think that our faith tradition really is the faith informed values are really about that every person is a child of God and is deserving of care and respect. And in fact, I mean, the ELCA's most recent social statement is called Civic Life and Faith for the Well-Being of All. And um, this is a time in our country's history where a lot of the care things that have been bipartisan and broadly supported in our country have been eroded. So, for instance, we've worked on a lot of anti-hunger or nutrition legislation, and we lost a whole bunch of those programs, or they've been defunded, seriously undercut. And so this idea of neighbor care, which is really fundamental to our faith tradition, is something that feels like even more urgent than before. So it's not just the faith tradition, it's sort of the urgency of the time combined, I think makes this particular series a really great opportunity to help people is actually laid out in a very, clear-cut, simple, doable format to have a conversation and reconnect that faith tradition and that care of neighbor to how you can live that out by being civically engaged. So it's that's really it, just that neighbor care.
Thanks, Nancy. That's beautiful. Absolutely. Faith in action. Chuck, I'm going to ask the same question. How did you bring your faith tradition to the reading? I might ask that perhaps in addition to your own faith tradition, sort of your expertise in the relationship of the Abrahamic religions as well, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Rhonda. Well, from that angle, I've been interested again professionally and non-professionally in how American religious pluralism works. I often said to my classes that I think religious pluralism is one of the things that America gets right. I'm a little worried about some of the directions in which we're heading. But for the most part, I still remain optimistic that this is a place in which religion is woven into our social and political fabric, and that those different strands, if you will, work together to produce, I can't believe I'm going to say this, a coat of many colors, if you will. And so this project spoke to me on that level as well. I want to do whatever I can to strengthen what I see as our historical commitment to welcoming people of different traditions that in one way or another goes back to the founding before there was a United States.
Thanks, Chuck. We definitely need a dose of optimism these days. So that's what WIVEC is about, is bringing hope, bringing optimism to our work so that we can all feel that we are part of something important, something bigger than ourselves. So thanks so much. And finally, Rabbi Steigman, one more time, how did you bring your faith tradition to the readings of Faith 250?
Thank you. The Bible teaches justice, justice shall you pursue. And of all the injunctions that appear in the 5 books of Moses, the one that appears more often than any other is you shall not mistreat the stranger or those in need, because you yourselves were strangers in a strange land. And if we do look at the United States as a wonderful opportunity from our country's inception, hopefully to and through the present and future, for anyone to come and to be able to forge their own path. I know that isn't going quite as well now as we would like it to. But if we really do look at the United States as an opportunity for anyone to come, then if this injunction is repeated more often in the 5 books of Moses than any other, that you shall not mistreat the stranger, for you yourselves were strangers, then that to me is one of the clarion calls for my role as a rabbi, and I think for all of our roles as people of faith to really help infuse some of these values into our daily lives and our systems.
Okay, thank you so much. So on to a third question, and I would ask that if you can answer this with one of the specific texts, that would be great. In our cohorts, we talked a lot about what we were reading and whether we saw in our country the actualization of these readings or whether they were more aspirational and what we can do with those aspirations. So this next question asks, how did any of these readings, or even perhaps the gatherings themselves, how did they inspire you? And if you wanted to use one specific reading, that would be fabulous. We had some great conversations. I think some readings led to better conversations than others, which of course is what happens when you have 4 different readings. But again, what is it that inspired you in these gatherings, the readings as a whole, or even specific readings? All right, Chuck, we'll start with you.
Well, let me just say that I'm old enough to have been in graduate school at the bicentennial. And I remember thinking at that point, how exciting it is to study early texts and think about how those values have played out over several hundred years. Again, as I and some of the other speakers have said, the 250th anniversary comes at a very downtime. I don't think that people are generally as conversant with our heritage as I wish they were, and they're not as excited about our heritage as I wish they were. So just one document, and this is an obvious one, How did it inspire me? I would pick the Declaration of Independence, and particularly the bit in the introduction and in the preamble about how, in a deist way, our rights are rooted in the creation. That is, they are anterior, before they precede um, uh, privileges, rights that governments give. And I think there's an echo there certainly in the religious traditions I'm most familiar with, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, that our sacred texts talk about uh, people being created in the image of God, and that I think the Declaration suggests that our political values can be consonant with our religious values, and that um, the fact of being God's creatures leads us religiously to meditate, as Morsh was just saying, about remembering the stranger, caring for the stranger. Um, and also our political values stem from a certain impulse as well. Uh, Not always realized, and certainly not at the time of the Declaration, but it's there. And so I was inspired again for myself uh, of reading these documents and reminding myself of what I had always known and maybe forgotten, that these values run through our history and they're available to be mined if people will just look.
Thanks, Chuck. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. So I'm glad I don't have to follow that. But I think we're in very capable hands with Rabbi Steigman. So again, how did the gatherings inspire you? How did the readings? And if there's one specific reading that inspired
Oh,
you?
you give me too much credit, Rhonda, but thank you. I'll speak just specifically to the Frederick Douglass speech. First of all, I'm always drawn to powerful and compelling oratory. So just from a rhetorical perspective, it is an incredible, incredible piece. Um, just the way that he was able to lay out the moral call and ethic for equality and equity, and how we as a country had fallen short. This was a speech that he gave in 1852. So you're already talking about 76 years into this country. Just the ways in which our country at that point had fallen so far short of the ideals of this nation, and the glaring hypocrisy within the 4th of July relative to how it's fallen short. Just the conviction, the power, the clarion call to justice and to action. And he laid out accountability in a way that I thought was so poignant, without consistently pointing fingers at every single person, right? Holding someone accountable without effectively saying you're terrible is a near impossible thread to line, especially when you speak with the passion and conviction that Douglass used. So to be able to do that is such an inspiration for me. I have no hopes or illusions or delusions of ever being the orator that Douglass was, or the rhetorician that he was. And simply to be able to learn from him how to hold myself and all of us accountable for where we have fallen short in a way that doesn't trigger that that kind of blame defensiveness is just so inspirational. So I'm really grateful to have not read it in its entirety, but really to have read the parts of it that I've read, and to be able to be with colleagues discussing it.
Thanks so much. And that was a day where the conversation was probably the longest that we had of the 4 meetings, was definitely with that piece. So thank you. And yeah, finally, Nancy, again, was there a reading that particularly inspired you, or was it the gatherings, the groups as a whole? If you can
Yeah,
speak to that.
guess I'll start at where I first heard about it at the meetings. I think I'm just always really delighted when faith-based organizations show up in civic spaces. So at the Voting Rights Coalition, um, for me, as a young person, I know that, I mentioned before that maybe for me, there was too much separation in my own life between um, my faith practices and are not really my practices, but my faith life or community and the way I engage in civic engagement. And so it was so helpful to me to get involved with a group like Bread for the World, which has a long history of advocacy on anti-hunger issues because it brought those two things together, right? It was a group that was going towards more systems change and trying to, you know, bring our country's systems into spaces where we're doing better care of each other and care of people around the world. And so the integrating of faith and civic engagement was something I found so helpful as a young person. And I think it's just something I see potential with this series of helping people, connect those parts of their life or get more active in one or the other. It could be, I think there's a lot of mutuality. You know, I have found just promoting the project as an opportunity to say, hey, faith-based groups are doing some things to more secular spaces, but also to help people in my faith community or in faith organizations I'm involved with to connect more into that civic engagement. So for me, I loved all the readings. I think the two that kind of fit that bill of bringing that kind of integration between faith and civic life are the two that are more familiar to people, the Great Colossus and America the Beautiful. I mean, the Beautiful, it might even be sung in many faith communities at times of national holidays, and yet there's challenges there, right? I mean, like in our own ELCA, we've been working a lot on something called the Truth and Healing Movement. So trying to repair relations with Indigenous peoples. And so like that verse about, for the pilgrim's feet, like you realize this familiar national, it's not our national anthem, but a national song had such a Eurocentric viewpoint. And it's an opportunity to continue another dialogue that we're having about healing relationships that are really important that are in need of healing between faith communities and Native people. So I think, I see a lot of opportunity for really great conversation and mutuality with those readings. Great Colossus really connects people back to values and seeing that these basic needs and caring for each other has been something that people have aspired to do. We have not figured it out, but people have been working to try to make it a more perfect union and trying to keep each other engaged and hopeful, and we're just part of that story, and we have a part to do in that story.
Thanks, Nancy. It's funny that you just said something about a more perfect union, because there's an organization called A More Perfect Union, and that is literally how I heard about this program, Faith 250. It is called A More Perfect Union, the Jewish Call to Democracy. And that's how I heard about Faith 250. So in listening to a lot of your answers, I'm going to skip around a little bit. And so I'm going to give you a moment if you need to answer this question, for all of you listeners out there, everybody was given questions in advance. I'm going to skip to number 7. So I'm just going to say whoever would like to answer this question first, there's no particular order that you've been given. What did you learn from the interfaith aspect of this program? Many of you, I would say, or all of you are experts in interfaith, whether it's through your study or through the work you do, both professionally and as volunteers. But what did you learn from the interfaith aspect, whether it was a different faith specifically or the cohort itself?
Jump in, just that, I think it's just always great when I'm somebody who enjoys discussion. I know it's how I process ideas, but also if you're in a conversation or a study with others, you have you get their thoughts. You don't have to, you're just not limited to your own, which you only can see so much on your own. You need other people to help broaden your thinking. So even just something like coming to an understanding of the different rhythms and people's different faith traditions, right? I mean, my thinking has been shaped by, church year calendar as opposed to, Jewish holiday calendar, all those things. It just helps you be more aware of how other people are, influenced and operating, and it broadens, and you have more of an appreciation for the diversity and different ways of thinking, which if you just stick in your own, you miss out on a lot of richness. And so that's probably the biggest thing. And then I was impressed with with Chuck and some of the clergy members of our particular cohort, the history and preparation and care that they brought to our meetings was very much appreciated.
Well, thank you, Nancy. I don't have much really to add to that. For me, any interfaith event sort of gives me the opportunity to re-experience what I enjoy about such things, such conversations. They do take one out of one's normal, comfortable spaces and can be challenging and also rewarding. When you can, and I think in our groups we were able to do this, if you sort of let down your doctrinal defenses and just begin to approach, in our case, some texts as individuals with certain backgrounds and perceptions, but as someone who's not defending those, then you have open conversations, or you have the opportunity for that. And to my mind, that's the bottom line.
Thank you. In Judaism, we have a quip that if you have 2 Jews, you have 3 opinions, because we can never seem to agree on anything. And I thought that coming together for these conversations, we would have multiple people, multiple faiths, and I don't quite want to say one opinion, but a lot of these values are effectively low-hanging fruit values. We're all coming together because we care about people. We care about this country. We want to care more about the country. We want a country to care more about people. And we have similar language for the values that gird us in our advocacy and in our fight for equity and for justice. And I was still surprised how throughout a lot of the conversations, there were people sometimes from within the same faith who read their faith's values into and through the texts very, very differently. Or sometimes people from different faith practices who maybe we can't all seem to get along at times outside of the 50-50 room, where we actually saw the same things being lived out. So it's just that additional reminder that even when our values and our intentions and our hopes are aligned, which is not something I take for granted because that's not the case, how we choose to live them out or implement them, or where we see our successes, where we see ourselves not having hit the mark, is still often so varied. And that just comes down in many ways, not just to the distinction within faiths, but just to the differences with us and people. And really just these values are the same. And what we do with them, what we carry, what we prioritize in any given moment is still incredibly varied, even if the hopes and aspirations are similar.
All right. Thanks so much. Last question, which is really important as we move from these, sort of intimate, cozy clergy cohorts into these bigger congregational gatherings is, what do you hope others will gain from this program? First, we need to bring people to this program, but when they leave the program, whether it's after 2 sessions, 3 sessions, 4 sessions, what do you hope others can gain from this?
I can start. I remember the first time that I wished Happy 4th of July to someone who was Black, and I received a very negative response. That is not to say that it's inappropriate to wish Happy 4th of July to someone who is Black. It's not to say that everyone who's Black is antipathetic to the 4th of July. I remember the first time I received a really negative response. And it was full of almost a lot of, I can't believe you didn't know better. So I say that because I think our foundational documents have so much wisdom, so much aspiration, so much value, and they've fallen short in so many different ways. And for some of us, we're not really aware of just how far we have fallen short and how much we continue to fall short, even if we know about the history in this country. And for many of us as well, I don't know if we are fully attuned, and I include myself, that we are fully attuned to the pain that the gaps between this country's aspirations and day-to-day reality, not just historically, but today, I don't think so many of us are attuned to the real gaps between those. And the flip side is, it is often so hard for anyone who is in a place of pain to find points of celebration. And I think that's the tremendous tension within July 4th. Do we use July 4th as a way to highlight the hypocrisy and the injustices? Do we use July 4th as a way to celebrate the successes that we've had while not sweeping under the rug the ongoing pain? And I don't think it's a binary. I don't think it's a single answer for all of us. And I don't think it's a single answer for everyone. Some of us might find ourselves in the place of pain and injustice. Some might find ourselves in the place of celebrating whenever you have the opportunity to celebrate, even though it doesn't mean that everything is perfect. Some of us might find ourselves in tension or confused. And I think the plurality of spaces that we're in is such a central thing to be able to highlight. So that we can be more aware of what's going on in our community and more aware of how we engage with other people in our community, with their pain, with their celebrations, and with the tension for some of really being in both places almost constantly. And just, I think July 4th and our text is a remarkable and powerful way to bring these conversations to the foreground.
Yeah. I'll just jump on that idea that, so many people are feeling really conflicted about the current state of things in our country and the world. And, I think this series can give people a time to reflect and connect to those shared values and aspirations. But, if you think about our faith traditions, it's people who, gather regularly, and we reflect and we confess and we repent and we reset or recommit and try to figure out, how are you going to live your faith informed values how's it going to apply in your life and in your community? So I'm really hoping that people will take advantage of that opportunity, because I think we have that practice in these particular readings, and the questions and introductions around them, offer it as that opportunity to say, we're not there yet. And, those of us who are in community organizing know, I mean, this is kind of a basic of community organizing, which also grew out of faith traditions, by the way. But it's the idea that we see the world as it is, but we know the world as it could be. And you have to be living in that space, in that tension between the world as it is and the world as it could or should be, right? And honestly, it might be hard to live in that tension, but I find, for me, it is the place of hope, right? I don't want to be with people who are just not willing to look at the hard things or not engage with them, because then we're stuck with what we've got. Um, and the people who are willing to be working towards that more perfect union, or the world as it could or should be, are the ones that they haven't given up. They're the ones who have the hope that there's possibility to make good progress, to take better care of each other, to live, more godlike lives, if you will, right? So I think that hopeful crowd, I hope that by being realistic about our shortcomings, and yet knowing that we have each other and we have our faith to lean on, we can keep going to make things better. In the Lutheran tradition, we talk about being sinners and saints simultaneously. Everyone is a sinner and a saint. And so, we want to deal with the fallout from our sinfulness and move into that better place, that we have the ability to be co-creators with God, right? That's what we're called to do in our faith tradition. So,
Well, thanks to both of you for your replies, and Moish, thank you for sharing a potentially embarrassing, or maybe it wasn't embarrassing, and learning moment. I can see why you really like Douglas's speech, since you were in that moment. And of course, Douglas at the end, after he expresses all his anger and outrage, says, "But there's still hope." And I would just say, I hope that others would gain a renewed sense of what citizenship means in this country. We see so many people still desperate to come to the United States, to partake fully in American life. I know a Syrian migrant family, and I've met with them over the past 3 years. And, I've watched them as they learn about the culture, as they seek for opportunities, and enjoy the chances that they have. I have a sense, perhaps wrongly, but it's my sense that those of us who have been here, who've been citizens all our lives, are perhaps a little jaded about that. And one of the things that I got out of this program again is all of the people whose works were read, we read, celebrated being a part of this country, knowing that it had its imperfections as well. So again, I guess for myself, I'd like to rediscover the enthusiasm I felt as that young graduate student reading about Revolutionary War texts, and in which Americans thought of themselves as being responsible for the virtue of their country. I think we've let ourselves off the hook a little bit.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful way to conclude. And I did write down that note, Chuck. Celebrate knowing our imperfections. And I think that is really the crux of Faith 250 is to celebrate who we are and in acknowledging what are our imperfections and understanding that that is part of being a patriot to this country is celebrating with the hopes of making better what needs to be repaired. So thanks so much to our panelists, Nancy Jones of Prince of Peace, Lutheran ELCA, Chuck Cohen of Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, and also Temple Bethel and Madison, and Moish Steigman, the Mindful Rabbi of Own Your Judaism. I also want to thank, and I did not just do this at the beginning, I want to thank our co-sponsors of our cohorts. In Milwaukee, it was WIVEC, Tikkun Ha'ir, and Own Your Judaism. So thank you. And in Appleton, it was WIVEC and Esther. So thank you to those of you who are organizers, directors, co-founders of these wonderful organizations. Thank you so much for the co-sponsorship because WIVEC could not have done it on its own. So we have a small audience in real time here, but if there are questions for our panelists, I would say this is the time to ask them. And of course, those of you who are online, if you have questions, you can email us back, either myself or Jill, and we can get back to you. And if you have questions for the panelists, we can forward it to the panelists as well. But we'll take a moment to see if any of you who are here with us live have a question or a comment.
Well, I guess my question would be, is there anything any of y'all are looking forward to or hoping for when we're able to do our around July 4th get together?
Great question. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
I would just say that in the Appleton area and actually across Wisconsin, there was another clergy-led effort called the Palm Sunday Path. We did it in an interfaith way, even though in Appleton that has some ongoing action to try to help counties with what's coming at them from what's known as HR1 and the way it's going to affect SNAP and Medicaid. And because we were coming, there was a lot of different faith communities that came together for that work around the campaign called Palm Sunday Path that was also had a component originally for the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. It's like people gathered in multiple different ways, and it seems to have, kind of renewed that willingness, interest, enthusiasm for working together, in an interfaith way in our community. And so I'm just, excited that there is, we're offering, people are feeling the need for it or the desire for it, and we have several things to offer up, including Faith 250. So I'm very happy that we have the opportunities and a way to help people connect, like we've already noted, the tension of the celebration with the pain of some current situations.
Thanks, Nancy. And that does remind me to connect with Palm Sunday, the Palm Sunday Path organizers in Appleton. Right.
A lot of times people need a reason to get together, right? Like with your closest friends, you don't necessarily need a reason to get together. Just say, hey, what are you doing tomorrow night? Or let's just go have lunch. But even with people that we're friends or friendly with, sometimes we need a reason to get together. Oftentimes they're good reasons. They could be life cycle events or birthday parties, or Packers watch parties. Sometimes they're not such great events if it's funerals, but we often, or holidays, that's hopefully in the good events, not the not good events, but we often need reasons to bring people together. And when we look at July 4th, I think that can be a reason to bring people together um, in shared values and shared tension. Some of us might want to come together for the celebration, some for the pain, some for the tension between the two. It's a reason to bring people together. And I believe as we become a more fractured and polarized society, and as news and stories continue to be more fractured and more polarized, it's much, much, much easier to stay apart and or just to get to together with the people who are like-minded or like-valued with us. July 4th is really an opportunity to get together with people that we otherwise normally wouldn't. And I don't mean that to be just so simple and baseline. It's just so hard for us to accomplish. It's just so much harder to do now than I feel like it has been. So if this is a way that different people from different communities, from different backgrounds, from different walks of life, from different everything can be in a similar place, and we might come for similar reasons or for different reasons, but I think just presence and being together is such an underappreciated way to start building connection and relationship.
In the 19th century, the 4th of July was a major holiday, and people would gather around to hear orators declaim for 1 hour, 2 hours, etc. Of course, they didn't have TikTok to distract them. Nowadays, the 4th of July means meh as far as the meaning of the holiday. It's important culturally as the middle of summer. It's a time to take a long weekend if you can finagle it one way or the other, and to barbecue, et cetera, et cetera. And the historical sense of it, which is a declaration of independence and the founding of a new nation, has disappeared. And I would like to see a little bit more of that. And that's, I think, one reason to get together on this July 4th.
Thanks so much. I wrote a lot of notes down for that. So thank you so much. Katie, thanks so much for that question. So again, as we're nearing the end of this meeting, we'd like to remind people that we had an extremely successful phase 1 clergy cohort. Both Milwaukee and Appleton cohorts were some of the largest in the country. And that is really saying a lot for two of what we would consider smaller cities, Milwaukee and Appleton. I was so proud to be able to come together with so many different faith groups. We had Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, and interfaith all coming together to study these 4 texts. And sometimes the language was difficult and the conversations at times were difficult. I know that at one particular meeting, I came in feeling, I have to admit, uncharacteristically down about what was happening in our community. And it was only through the meeting that I felt an uplifting of my spirit. So thank you so much to this first cohort. And so now we move to our second cohort, and Jill and I will be sending you all sorts of links. Jill, I'm not even sure if we need to send them in this Zoom right now, but the most important of those links will be signing up for our Milwaukee cohort, which, oh my gosh, Rabbi Steigman, it begins in less than 2 weeks. So the Milwaukee cohort is beginning in May 14th. We are going to be at 2 different congregations, Progressive Baptist Congregation in Milwaukee and Congregation Shalom in Fox Point. And we will be having our celebration in a Park District community building. I have a couple that I'm going to look at to see which ones are best. So we're really celebrating, this truly is an interfaith celebration, 2 different faith traditions and of course, celebrating Milwaukee in a center spot, so everyone can come in to enjoy that final celebration gathering. And then, of course, in Appleton, we don't start till the end of June to be mindful of everyone's schedule. May and June tend to be such crazy months. So we will be beginning in Appleton. And thank you so much to Nancy and her congregation, Prince of Peace, for hosting the 2 meetings. We're only doing 2 meetings, and then the celebration as well. And then, of course, thank you to Matt Kanzera, who will be manning he'll be facilitating the online portion, so people who don't live in Milwaukee or Appleton can find their way to these meetings, and maybe even find a spot in Milwaukee or Appleton when we have our final celebration. So that is where Faith 250 is headed. All of you will be receiving links to the registration, links to Appleton, Milwaukee, our virtual registration, our flyers, and also the continuation of this beautiful series that we are calling Faithful Voices in a Critical Hour, a critical hour and a half. So much to cover. Our first meeting was again about Faith 250. Our second meeting will be again similar to this, to a similar panel, where instead of looking at our shared American texts, we will be looking at our faith texts and talking and sharing, reflecting about how our faith texts lead us to civic values. And we are building our panel as we speak. So at this point, we have someone from the Mormon tradition, the Baha'i tradition, and the Baptist tradition, and we are still gathering some more panelists. So very excited about that, which will be June 1st. You will all be getting information, and we have all of the topics from now until the November election. So you will be receiving information about that. And as always, we ask you to please share this out, as well as our WIVEC newsletter, so that all of your friends and family and fellow congregants can hear the great things that are happening at WIVEC. So once again, really want to say thank you to Nancy, Chuck, and Moish. Some of you started as friends, and some of you started as strangers and became friends. I'm so grateful to all of you. Thank you so much to Esther and Katie for helping get this off the ground in Appleton, Moish and Own Your Judaism for helping in Milwaukee. And of course, always thank you so much to Jill, staff at Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. I can't believe I worked at this job for almost 4 years, and for over 4 years without Jill's help. I don't know how how it was made possible. So if you're seeing, wow, these flyers are looking so much more professional and information is going out so much better, it's because of Jill. So thanks so much, everyone. Again, if you have questions, you can ask, you can email myself or Jill, and if you have questions for any of the panelists, we can of course forward it to them. It is 1:15. It is a beautiful day. I hope all of you have a chance to get out and enjoy it, be with your friends, be with your family, and just be grateful for what we have here in the state of Wisconsin, in our country, and knowing as patriots that we are grateful for what we have, and we are mindful to make the changes that we think need to be made. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.